everyone. So we're going to talk a little bit about cooking in your home. You guys might not all be old enough to cook yet, but there's little things that we can help our parents out with too, and what can happen in a home kitchen fire, and some of the ways that we can overcome those fires and try and be safe. Okay. So for starters, having a fire extinguisher in your home is always a really good idea. We do have fire extinguishers with dry chemical, so they put out all kinds of different fires. They're good for just about everything. So if you have a fire extinguisher in your home, that is always a good option, especially if it is an ABC fire extinguisher. Okay. For stovetop fires, if we're cooking, a lot of time when we're cooking on the stovetops, there's a lot of foods that involve lots of grease. So if you're cooking bacon, any kinds of meats that might let off some grease, anything like that, cooking with oils. If you have a grease fire, when the stove gets to a certain temperature, it may ignite some of that grease on fire. Okay. If you do have a grease fire, make sure to never put water on it. Okay. Everyone's first instinct is, because it's beside the sink, to grab some water and throw it on top of the fire. Water actually reacts with grease and makes the fire bigger, and we're going to show you that in a video prior to this one. Okay. So if you have a small fire inside of a pan like this, what you're going to want to do is grab a lid that comes with it and just put it over top. Okay. You might want to wear a cooking mitt or something like that. If your parents are home, right, make sure that if you see fire on the stove, you tell them as soon as you can, and it's always safe to put something over top of that fire, and it just suffocates the fire so there's no more oxygen and the fire goes out. Okay, so don't ever use water for stovetop fires. We always want to try and suffocate the fire rather than put water on top of it. Okay, another way with stovetop fires, if we we can always put a rag over top too, right, if it's something smaller, and again, we're just going to put it over top, and it's going to let that fire go out because there's no oxygen that can get to it. Very important that before we do these steps, the number one thing is we always want to take the heat away from the fire, right? So we want to take the source of the heat away. So we're going to come in, we're going to turn off of our stove cooktops first, and then over top and try and suffocate that fire. Okay. Inside of the actual ovens, if we have a fire inside, if we open up and we see smoke coming out, the first thing that we want to do is close that oven, right? We don't want to open it up so smoke fills up the house. We close that oven and keep it enclosed inside of the oven. Okay, that's the safest place for it, is to keep it enclosed inside the oven, and then turn off the oven. Okay, we don't want to try and put that out. If we just close this up and we turn off the oven, there's not going to be any more airflow getting into it, because it's not trying to cook anymore. It'll turn it off and it will keep the fire enclosed in that oven. You might wreck your oven, but you're not going to fill your home up with smoke, and in return endanger your family and have to call the fire department potentially. Okay. So anytime we're cooking, if you see any of these things, you see smoke coming from the oven, or you see fire on top of the stove, make sure you tell an adult if there's an adult available. If you're there by yourself, the best thing, safest thing to do is always to just turn off whatever appliance is on, and if you can't get close enough, then evacuate the house, go to safety, and call 911.